Hi, I'm Chris from Lecture Owl, and welcome to Music for All. In this 10-part course, I'm going to teach you how to play guitar from picking up a guitar for the very first time all the way through to playing your very first song. In today's episode, we're going to talk about basic chord progressions, playing melody, and improvisation. So far, we've covered basic chords, scales, and a small amount of melody, harmony, and rhythm. So let's bring it all together. We're first going to cover chord progressions, then delve into playing melody, then cover jamming and soloing, and included in this episode will be a simple jam track for you to play along to and practice. Now a refresher. Our chords in the C major scale are C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. And again, we'll skip over B diminished for the ease of this program. Music in almost all examples uses chord progressions as a base. So what is a chord progression? A chord progression is basically a set of chords that are played in a sequence through time, that almost always repeat or follow a pattern. For example, in the E minor scale, so using what we learned in the rhythm section, we're counting out 4 beats per measure. Our count is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. In this example, we're playing 8th notes. So we're playing 8 notes a measure, which means we strum on every accent. So we strum on the 1 count, then again on the and count, then again on the 2 count, and so on and so forth. And again, in this example, we play the C major for 1 measure, the D major for 1 measure, and the E minor for 2 measures, and then repeat. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, if we were to play that same chord progression, but only strum quarter notes, it would look like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 that, in essence, is a basic chord progression. Now the combinations that you can use are infinite. You could play one chord for a few measures and then switch to another one halfway through a measure. Really, whatever you can come up with is what you could do. So a basic standard though is, and especially for beginning musicians, is to play 1 chord per measure. So the next example we will look at does just that. Western music, particularly Western pop music, is made up of a few common chord progressions. For example, the 1-5-6-4 progression. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now that chord progression is used in a lot of big hits. Some examples that use this progression or variations of it include Africa by Toto, Beast of Burden by the Rolling Stones, All the Small Things by Blink-182, Love the Way You Lie by Eminem and Rihanna, Bad Blood by Taylor Swift, Ghost by Justin Bieber, and the list goes on. So what is the 1-5-6-4 progression? In a major scale, we assign numbers to each chord that is played in a scale. So as we know, the notes in the C major scale go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And so the C is the 1, the D is the 2, the E is the 3, F is the 4, G is the 5, and so on and so forth. So in the key of C, the 1-5-6-4 progression is 1, 5, 6, 4, or C, G, A, F, or with the full chords, C major, G major, A minor, F major. Now the cool thing about this system is that when we change keys, we can play the same chord progression, but the notes will change because we're playing in a different key, and thus a different note is our 1. So our chord progression C major looked like that, but if we played that same chord progression in E minor or G major, it would sound like this. Now it's the exact same chord progression, but just starting with a different note or in a different key. Now that we've covered some basic chord progressions, let's look at playing melody. Melody, as we covered in the last session, is simply playing notes through time. For example, is a melody. Songs that you grew up with, like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, are heavily melody based. Now, when playing melodies, we often want to play with consonance and dissonance. Consonance is when two notes complement each other in a way that is pleasant to hear, and dissonance is when two or more tones clash and create a harsh, unpleasant sound. For example, or. So music in its most basic form is just like binary code, just ones and zeros. Whether it's noise or silence, consonance or dissonance, or fast or slow, stable or unstable, music is really just made up of the differences in dynamics. Take electronic dance music, for example. One of the reasons it's so popular is that DJs have mastered the creation of dynamics. It's that slow build-up, do, to the drop, where we wait for that final payoff. Song structure is much the same as writing melodies. So in electronic dance music, you can consider the build-up as your dissonance, building up to the drop, which is your consonance. In melody, however, we want to play the notes that tell a story, or take us on an adventure. And the way to keep others listening is that we promise them a payoff. So through the motion of changing the notes, we alternate between consonance and dissonance, and we build with dissonance and then pay off that promise with consonance. Now, what I did there is using the open E string as a bass. I started with a fifth, which sounds pleasant, then moved up, and right before the final note, I played a seven, which builds tension, then fulfilled my promise by releasing that tension with the root or one note, seven, root. Now that was only a very basic look into writing melody, but it is essentially what we do with our vocals when we sing a song. Often a repeated pattern is played that builds and releases tension, repeating phrases that are often catchy. Now, before we delve further into songwriting, there's one more exercise for you to do, and this one is a lot more fun. So, when writing melody, something that you can do is improvising. Improvisation is essentially just playing over a certain chord progression. Jazz music, for example, relies heavily on improvisation. So for this lesson, what we're going to do is improvise over a basic jam track. The track is going to be based in A minor, and it's going to be an A minor, G major, and F major chord progression. So after this example, till the rest of the episode, I'm going to play a chord progression with some backing instruments for you to play along to. So you're going to take the first position on the A minor pentatonic scale that we learned, and you're going to play it over top of these chords, but you can experiment. So instead of just playing it from the low notes to the high, you're going to mess around and play different notes in it, playing them for longer and shorter durations, bending them, etc. So all you got to do is just mess around and have fun. Now when you're playing, pay attention to what notes sound good and when you play them, and think about what chord they are being played over. And there's a couple things that you can do to add a little bit of style and a little bit of feeling to when you're soloing or improvising. So instead of just playing the notes as we would when we were practicing the scale, which is totally fine for you to do when you're beginning and kind of just learning this, what you can do is add in a few things like bends. And what a bend is just bending the string. And you can bend with any finger, really. You could bend with your pinky. You could bend with your pointer finger. It all depends. And you can even bend two strings at a time. And again, when I was doing that, I had my pointer finger on the 5th fret on the high E string and my pinky finger on the 8th fret on the B string. And again, those are just positions in that A minor scale. Another thing you can do sometimes is you can play two strings together. You could also do something called a hammer-on, and what a hammer-on is simply, instead of plucking each individual note, what you do is you hammer on the next fret that you're going to play. So instead of going, you go. So let's say, for example, if your pointer finger on the low E string on the 5th fret, and then you put your pinky down on the 8th fret on that low E string, that would be a hammer-on. Now a pull-off is the exact opposite, and that's you're just strumming the note and then you're just pulling it off to your pointer finger on the 5th fret, and this can be done anywhere. And again, this is with our fingers in the different positions on the A minor scale. So hammer-ons, pull-offs. And there's one other thing you can do, which is vibrato. And that's essentially just moving your finger quickly up and down on the string to kind of create a wavery kind of vibrato tone. I find for me that I kind of rotate my wrist a little bit to kind of get that sound. So fool around with these, play through the scale, play different sections, repeat notes, take notes away, etc. Try some hammer-ons, try some pull-offs, try some bends, just explore, experiment, and have fun. All right, so now I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of myself just improvising over that jam track, and then after that you're going to get 5 minutes of a jam track to play along to. And for this jam track, I'm just going to be playing simple power chords. Hammer-ons, pull-offs. Hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, vibrato. So again, yep, just mix it up, play around. Your turn. Okay, I hope you enjoyed improvising as much as I do. It's really one of the best ways to learn. Thanks for watching episode 7. I hope you found today's lesson helpful and valuable. If you have any questions or for more information, feel free to visit us at lectureowl.com. Next, in episode 8, we're going to talk about song structure.